Have you ever felt that gut punch of being let down by someone that you trusted? They said they'd be there, but they weren't. They committed, and then they disappeared. And you're left wondering, what did I even do to deserve this? Well, today we're diving into how to deal with disappointment. You know, the kind that doesn't just frustrate you, but starts to really wear you down. And if you're not careful, it'll start to chip away at your trust and at your energy, and eventually at your own inner peace. But here's the deal. We're not going to spiral. We're going to process it, and we're going to process it intentionally. And we're going to use the COIN framework to do it. Confirm it, own it, be intentional, and change the nature of everything. This episode is for anyone who's tired of playing the mind games that come with all these letdowns. It's for all of us who want to respond with integrity without being shackled to invisible expectations. So let's coin it.
Welcome to the Nature of Everything podcast with Bo and Clint, where we deep dive into the world of personal development through COIN. Confirm it, own it, be intentional, and change the nature of everything.
Hey everybody. Unfortunately for this episode, you're stuck with just me. Bo's out sick this week, but he's practicing with us in spirit, I promise you. And you know what? You're practicing right alongside of us. So remember, this is a community, not just a podcast. So COIN, it stands for confirm it, own it, be intentional, and change the nature of everything. It's a framework that Bo and I use every day to close gaps, stop drifting, and honestly, just try to become better humans. Not perfect, just better. We actually wrote the book on it. It's called Confirm It, Own It, Be Intentional, and Change the Nature of Everything in Your Life. It's packed with everything that we talk about here, plus a whole bunch of ideas that hadn't even made it to the mic yet. So, you know what? You can grab it right now at coinyourlife.com. And while you're at it, follow us on all the socials, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. Just search Coin Your Life. You know, disappointment doesn't always show up as some crazy dramatic betrayal. More often it's quiet and it's subtle, but it is cumulative. For instance, it's like your friend who doesn't follow through after promising they'd be there when things got hard. It's the family member who said they'd support your decision, but behind your back, they've questioned everything that you've done to everyone that they can come into contact with. It's the coworker who takes the credit or forgets to return the support that you've given 100 times over. It's the partner who keeps saying, you know what, next time, but then never seems to change that behavior. Sometimes it's even the silence, that text that never came, the apology that was never offered, the effort that never matched yours. When these things happen, you feel it. That part is automatic. That punch in the gut, that tightening in your chest, that flush of anger or shame or confusion, like that's all normal. It's human. You don't need to apologize for feeling these disappointments. You don't need to fake toughness or unrealistic stoicism or pretend that it doesn't matter. But I tell you what, here's where the shift happens. The feeling is automatic, but the behavior that follows, that's a choice. That's your choice. And it's your responsibility. You get to decide what meaning you give to that letdown. You get to decide what meaning you give to the disappointment. You get to decide what story you tell yourself afterwards. And you get to decide whether it becomes a wound or a mirror. And this is why we turn to COIN. Because when emotions are high and trust is bruised, man, it's easy to spiral. But COIN gives you this framework, not to stuff down the feelings or pretend like it's not true, but you get to sift through them with clarity. So let's walk through that. So the confirm it piece. What actually is true? Disappointment stings. There's no doubt about it. But the first thing we've got to do is strip it down to the truth. What actually happened? Did the other person make a promise? Or did we just assume that they would act a certain way? Did we miscommunicate? Or did we overestimate the relationship? Like, this is that confirm it piece. This is where you confirm what's actually happening. And it's where you have to get very honest, not emotional, but very honest. It's not about blaming them or defending yourself. It's about seeing clearly, naming what actually is. Because until you confirm that truth, you're just guessing at solutions. But this clarity, like seeing this clearly, that's power. Also, if you've ever heard of Mel Robbins talk about her let them approach, this is where our pieces overlap in a way. If they let you down, well, let them. That doesn't mean that you're okay with it. It just means that you're seeing it for what it actually is. But not more than that. You're actually just seeing it for what it is. Let them be who they are. You confirm the truth, and then you move forward, eyes open. All right, the own it piece. What's my role? This is where we ask ourselves, like, what's my part in this? Well, for instance, did I ignore something that I shouldn't have? Did I overcommit or avoid, clarifying my own boundaries to this person? Did I go along with something even though I knew it wasn't right for me? This isn't about beating yourself up, but it is about calling yourself into the game, not calling yourself out on your mistakes, but calling yourself in, like, put me in, coach. Let me have a role in this. And here's a hard truth. Sometimes we betray ourselves by trying to avoid, disappointing others. And the longer we do that, the more that resentment builds, and not just towards them, but towards ourselves, by ourselves. So we have to own it with clarity and with courage, because the only person we can ever truly manage is ourselves. So, intentionality, the be intentional piece. What happens next? Now that we've confirmed the truth and owned our role, we get to choose, and we get to choose intentionally. Like, do I need to reset my boundaries? Possibly. Do I need to just simply walk away from this piece? Do I need to speak up? Is there something that I have to say? Because here's the thing, being intentional means choosing with your entire self, your entire whole authentic self, not out of guilt, not out of obligation or habit, and certainly not out of fear or fear of conflict. You can be someone of high integrity and you still can say no to whatever it may be. You can be reliable and not responsible for everything and everyone. It's simply too much. It's way too overwhelming. At no point could you ever think that it's reasonable that you're responsible for everything and everyone. We're not here to keep co signing these unspoken, unrealistic contracts that we talked about in the last episode, but we are here to move forward purposefully. So that leads us to the nature of everything. Turn the pain into practice. Like, we talk about practice consistently. So let's turn this pain into practice. This is where coin becomes so transformational. This isn't just about solving a conflict. It's about shaping the way you show up in your life. When you coin through disappointment, you don't come out the same. You come out clearer, and you trust yourself more. You set cleaner and clearer boundaries, and you stop performing. You stop holding people hostage with these expectations that they never agreed to. And you stop betraying your own peace just to keep things easy and convenient, to simply keep the peace. That's how everything changes. Let's make it practical. How do we use this? Because it's one thing to understand coin and these sectional pieces. It's another thing entirely to actually use it when life actually punches you in the gut. So, what does this look like on the ground? When you're actually disappointed and you're confused or you're tempted to just shut down? Well, let's look at it. Let's break it down with a few everyday examples. So, confirming it. You've made plans. They bailed again. And now you're feeling like you're spiraling. So, here's what confirmation looks like in that moment. You pause and ask, okay, what actually happened? They didn't show up. Again, that actually happened. They didn't communicate. That actually happened. You feel hurt and you feel overlooked. That actually happened. That's the truth. You don't need to inflate it with stories like, well, I don't guess I matter, or, you know what, I'll always get treated like this. Confirmation, it strips away that drama and gets you straight to the clarity. It gets you to the clear pieces of what actually happened. So then you get to have your own ownership of this. For instance, let's say your boss promised to recognize you in a team meeting at work. Well, they didn't. Now you're pissed. You're probably even embarrassed about it. So, what does owning it look like? What does it sound like in your mind? You get to say, I'm frustrated because I expected recognition. Okay, well, I didn't communicate that expectation clearly. Well, guess what? You probably really wouldn't. Like, who's going to ask for recognition? Like, so that's also a piece to realize. Like, would I even ask for recognition? Yeah, probably not. But I can own that I also I tend to seek approval more than I should. And you know what? This stung because I tied too much of my own value to their words. So, see how that puts the power back in your hands? You didn't cause the letdown. You didn't create the disappointment necessarily, but you're taking ownership of what triggered you to feel this way. That's powerful. So, how do we get intentional about this? You keep having the same argument with someone. And honestly, obviously you care about this person or you wouldn't continue to keep having an argument with them. So they don't follow through and you're tired of this loop. This is a common everyday issue. Like you're not unique if you're experiencing this. But how do you get to utilize intentionality for something like this? Being intentional here, it means that you're making a conscious choice. So, do I reengage and try again? I have more clarity about the boundaries and what I want. So, should I reengage or do I pull back? Do I stop hoping for a different version of them to show up? Or do I speak a hard truth? Do I risk this discomfort? Because if you're risking discomfort for change, like, are you willing to speak that hard truth? And is that something that you want to do intentionally? Whatever you choose, just know that you're not drifting and don't do it out of reaction. You don't need to be the reactionary piece. You're responding with purpose. So, whatever you choose, do it with intentionality. How does this change the nature of everything? When you use coin like this, the outcome doesn't always look dramatic. That doesn't mean that it's not deeply transformational, however. Instead of ruminating on this, you get to recognize what's taking place. Instead of resenting what's happening, you get to reflect on what's truly affecting you. And instead of reacting, you get to respond specifically with clarity and with intentionality. You change how you see the relationship. You change how you trust yourself. And eventually, you change how you show up in the world. That's the beauty of coin. It doesn't fix people, it forms you. It places you in the driver's seat to adjust you. And when you're formed differently, everything else changes. So here's what I want you to remember: you're not wrong for feeling disappointment, and you're not overly sensitive. You're not too sensitive in the world. It's not that. You're not expecting too much because you want people to show up with honesty and respect. What you do with that disappointment, though, that is where your power exists. And coin is how you hold that power with integrity. Confirm what actually happened, own what's yours, nothing more, nothing less. Be intentional with your response, but not reactive. And let the way you walk through that pain change the nature of how you walk forward. Because once you start practicing this, you don't go back to the dark. You don't go back to sleep, and you don't go back with your eyes shut. You start to recognize unspoken contracts before you agree to them. You start to hear yourself saying yes, but only when you mean it. You stop chasing people who don't want to meet you in the middle. And most importantly, you stop abandoning yourself just to maintain someone else's comfort. Letdowns don't get the final word. Clarity does. Integrity does. You do. So go coin it. As always, thanks for showing up. Follow us on socials: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. If Bo was here, if he wasn't sick, he'd probably dig it, but he's not here to say it. So catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to check out coinyourlife.com and find us on social media.